Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. We are going to go ahead and get started here in a moment, and wanted to just double check logistically that you can hear us. So if you have the ability to type in either the question or the chat screen in the console, just let us know, make sure we're being heard. And we are going to keep attendees on mute during the broadcast for sound quality, but we will be recording the session. And we'll also be asking people to type your questions in the chat screen and the question bar as we go through. And thank you. I see a few answers here that we are audible. Okay, great. So let's go ahead and get started. Carly, I'm not seeing your screen. So it says waiting to view Carly's screen. So maybe you can hit the share in the sharing area or show your screen. There we go. Okay, super. Seeing it now. Okay, excellent. So go ahead and get started then. Thanks again for joining us today. We are Zuri Group. In case you're not familiar with us, we are a full service technology consulting company. We also do strategy consulting and event fundraising strategy and all kinds of good CRM strategy consulting. And we strictly work with nonprofits. And we help you leverage that technology to build better relationships with your constituents. And we're also technology agnostic and can help on any platform. So we have about over 40 technology professionals throughout the country, including our strategists, consultants, business analysts, etc. And our goal is to give nonprofits the same level of expertise and talent and commitment that people receive in the private sector. So to that end, I'll introduce our two presenters here today. Myself, my name is Kim Everett, and I'm the Director of Client Success. And I'll mainly be acting as facilitator on this webinar. My history is with, I have a lot of experience with Big Brothers Big Sisters of America and our affiliates that are on our platform. And we also have Carly Samuelson here today, who is going to be our main presenter. And Carly has over 20 years of experience in the nonprofit sector, including building and implementing peer-to-peer events and doing that fundraising and donor stewardship activities over the years. She's worked for a variety of organizations from small local organizations to large national ones. And she is focused on growth and strategy, including experience with the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, Operation Homefront, Crohn's and Colitis Foundation of America, American Cancer Society, and Heifer International, just to name a few. So she's got just a little bit of an experience in the nonprofit sector. So anyway, we are thrilled to have her on board at Zuri Group, and I'm going to turn it over to Carly to talk about our topic today.
Thanks, Kim. I want to do a mic check too. Are you can hear me, right, Kim?
Yes, sounds great.
Okay, so that means everybody can hear me then. Hi, everyone. Thanks to Kim for that amazing introduction. I'm Carly Samuelson, and as Kim mentioned, I am a consultant here at Zuri Group working on fundraising strategy and support for your events. And I love peer-to-peer fundraising. I love fundraising in general, but specifically peer-to-peer, because it gives your constituents a way to take action for your mission. So I am very well versed in all types of fundraising. Peer-to-peer is my specialty. And what we're going to talk about today for a little while, obviously, I think it goes without saying at this point that we are now in challenging times. And I have been watching the world of nonprofits for a few weeks now, and obviously seeing everybody's rush to changing strategies and to virtual events and ways that you can continue to push your mission forward during this unprecedented time. And so I thought it was a great opportunity for us today to host a webinar for you guys to talk about some of the issues that are specific to fundraising and strategy that are helpful or are going to be helpful as we look towards leading the way into the future of fundraising for our respective organizations. So that's what we're going to talk about today. You see on the screen 3 topics that we're going to cover. First, getting back to basics. Next, breaking down the barriers to giving. And then last but not least, that very valuable gift of time. So I want to explain how we're going to work today, because we're going to make this as hopefully interactive as possible as we can. We want to keep you all engaged and informed throughout the entire time. So we're going to dive into each one of these topics. And here's how we're going to do them. We'll start with get back to basics, and we're going to kick it off with a poll question to y'all. So get ready, because there's a couple of them throughout the presentation, just to keep you on your toes. Want to hear from you and want to get some audience participation. Then we'll cover the topic and show some examples of some great ways that these practices are being put into use. And then we are actually going to host a mini question and answer just specifically for that category, get back to basics, before we move forward. Obviously, we will also have a large question and answer at the end of the webinar, but we thought maybe we would open it up to middle of the road question and answers, because there are some things we'll be discussing in each one of these categories that may have a great question attached that should be answered specifically in that category. So I hope you like the format, and we will just dive right in. So let's first start talking about that, getting back to basics. As a little background to this, I actually, Kim mentioned, I've been a fundraiser for over 20 years. And when I first started in fundraising and in peer-to-peer fundraising, I was really lucky to have some wonderful staff and mentors who I still to this day credit as showing me the way when it comes to fundraising. This was before the time of automation. It was before, this was before the time of email asks for donations, which makes me feel really, really dated, but that's what it was. And this is before the days of mass comm, really. So, if I wanted to reach out to a fundraiser, I emailed them or I called them. We didn't track journeys because we didn't have automations to track. And we weren't able to think of elaborate communication systems because they didn't really exist. So we did a lot of working on relationship building and donor management right within tools that you have already in your office. So I thought this would be a great place to start, because at the end of the day, being a fundraiser and moving forward your strategic vision is all surrounding that is your relationship with your donors and your constituents. And so if there was ever a better time to get back to the basics of fundraising, I think it is now. So let's take our first poll. Kim, it's popping up onto the screen. A question: prior to the COVID-19 crisis, how was your how was your organization communicating to its donors? You can do as many options as you want. You can click one, you can click multiple. I'm curious to see what we've got. I'm actually hoping I see a lot of phone calls, but we'll see what happens there. Just give you a few more seconds to put your answers in. And while we're saying this, if there is a way that you communicate prior to COVID-19, did you communicate with your organization in a way we haven't seen it now? Go ahead and pop it into the chat. We'd love to see that too. Because I don't know if we got everything listed.
Okay, we've got about 87% of people voted. I say that's a good time to close the poll and show the results. Does that work for you, Carly?
It sure does. Let's show those answers. Phone calls. I love it. Look at that. Great. I'm really outstanding. It's outstanding to see so many phone calls. Obviously, email marketing is big, and I love direct mail too. Looks like social media and SMS and text, areas of opportunity. Awesome. Thanks, y'all. Let's dive in. I'm very pleased by those results, actually. So getting back to the basics, what it really is focusing on that constituent relationship and that constituent management that as fundraisers, we should be so good at doing. We have a poll question later on down the line that asks specifically, have you reached out to your COVID or have you reached out to your constituents since COVID? So we'll save that for later down the line. But here are some ways that I love to cover when I talk about going back to the basics. Building relationships, obviously, we all know that's the way that our constituents know us as our organizations. We are the face, we are the leaders, and we're the people that they connect us to when they think of your mission. And so building relationships with your constituents should be really easy because hopefully you have great ones already existed. And obviously from the results of the polls, you're doing everything great. So you should have great relationships. Now, however, is the time in the current state that we're in to ask questions. A lot of your donors are now sitting there with time on their hands. Obviously, it's different because there's kids at home and work from home and a lot of moving parts and a lot of information coming at us at one time. But I venture to say that if you were to engage your donors in some serious, good questioning, they would open up and they would ask, or they would tell you, and then that information will be really valuable for down the line. So, and then the last piece of this is taking what you're hearing and moving forward. So let's dive a little deeper. I loved, like I said, seeing that a lot of people are on the phone with their constituents. And if that is your group, I give you a high five and huge kudos. We have found in the world of automation and marketing and discussion that a lot of times we're seeing a bunch of things happening. One, people don't answer their phones anymore, really. It's really, really hard to get people to engage with you. But if there was ever a time to try and break down that silo, now would be the time. I think calls to donors and to constituents, especially your major donors, your most supportive community, the people that you would have maybe seen recently, even if we hadn't had to do social distancing and quarantines, those are the groups of people that you should be reaching out to first and foremost, and giving them trying to figure out a way to communicate with them. You notice I mentioned SMS, text, and social media too, because while we're going to talk back to the basics about one-on-one emails that are really great and those phone calls that may or may not go answered or not. But I also want to throw in there that texting is becoming an increasingly exciting form of communication for top level donors. It's also a welcomed communication form, I believe, at this time. And then obviously social media as well, being on your platform as your organization and taking a moment to maybe direct message a contact or a friend or write on somebody's wall as your organization is going to go a really, really long way to helping them feel the love that you want to send them. And the other things that I say about when you're reaching out during this time, first and foremost, make it impactful. Ask how they're doing. Checking in. This is such a difficult time for so many people, us included. And so having those moments of true communication will also really help to open up the dialogue. And then I always suggest have some questions ready. Is this person a supporter of your organization? Are they an event participant? Are they a board member? Are they, whatever their relationship is to the organization? I suggest having some questions ready. And then here's the important part. Listen to the responses. We're in a situation where now more than ever, we have time to have those longer conversations where digging a little deeper might be equally, if not more valuable than other forms of communication. And so be ready not to just ask, but to listen in response, and take notes of what people are saying, because that is going to be really important for them. They say, this organization really wants to hear me because I have some good things to be said, and leave it open to the fact that your feedback, your time, the gift you've given me by giving me this feedback is really going to help push our program forward in the long run. So I appreciate it. Asking questions, like I was saying, we're talking about specific ones, but there's a lot of ways to do this. And so not only right now are surveys a great opportunity, and I'm going to show you one I really, really liked that I saw recently, but virtual focus groups, virtual committees, and if you're even thinking about a larger scale, a question and answer session on your social media platform. These are all great ways to reach out and engage your supporters right now. It's something you can do from home, and it's something that will really help you gather information about what you're doing, especially if you, prior to this crisis, if you had questions. And as fundraisers, we always have questions about, are you reading our emails? Is our communication helpful? Do you like the way our program is set up? What else could we be doing to support you? These are all great things to ask during this time. So I think a lot of people will want to give you some great feedback. And then the really important part of this is using this to move forward. So oops, excuse me, I hit a button and switched us off. Now my calendar is up. See what's going on in my life. So you listen to what's saying, use the feedback, and move forward. Your constituents hold a lot of great information, and listening to what they have to say. I will say this with caveat, as because I've been in nonprofits for so long, I know that not every bit of information is good information. The old adage, take it with a grain of salt. These are all things to remember, or if you're working with the staff, to have your staff remember as well as they're having these conversations, but also stay open, because in this time of good relationship management, if you are listening and if you are really thinking critically, some of what comes up may be an extremely exciting opportunity that you haven't necessarily thought of yet. I can't tell you how many times as a fundraiser I have been in a opportunity or in a constituent call, and I thought in my head, wow, well, that would be great if that could happen, but it actually, I don't know if it can. But you can't say that to donors. So you just listen and you say, yeah, that's a great idea. It's a great idea. But I can also tell you that a lot of times when I've done that and I've heard feedback, occasionally it's like, that sticks with me. We're going to try that. How can I take that down a new path? So I highly recommend that you do that, and that you really take the time to connect with your donors, however it is, ideally in small groups or one-on-one, because the time is now. I'm so sorry that these keep coming up, because I know you can see them. And that also, what are you going to do as a result? Hold on one second. Okay. Hopefully not today. And so what can you take from these conversations that can be applied as you move forward in your organizational next steps? So here is an example of an email that I got recently from Zero, the end of prostate cancer. And what you can see in here is that this is a survey that was sent out actually at the end of March. The communication, as you can see, is basically very compassionate to what's going on right now. And the question back to me is, what are your most urgent needs? It's a really, really nice way. They outline in the email, this is a 3-question survey. It's only going to take a few minutes to complete, but your feedback is going to be very, very important to us right now. I opened up and clicked on their, on their actual, I'm just going willy-nilly with the PowerPoint presentation today. We look at their question, and I loved it. I just thought it was amazing. It made me feel like, wow, somebody wants to hear what's going on with me right now. This is an organization that I've given to. This is an organization that I put a high value on because my father has prostate cancer or had prostate cancer, and we've been to their walks. And so it was really, I'm not a major donor of their organization. I've just given, a decent, nice little substantial level, and this is what I got as a response. I thought this was very, very sweet, and I thought it was really, really clever of them that this time they would be asking these types of questions. I don't work with anyone necessarily at Zero, so I don't know what they're planning to do with this information, but just having this as your donors, like as you work through your donor management, this can be very, very telling for what you're looking to do with your donors moving forward. And I could probably go on all day long with other places. We've seen we've seen a situation on Instagram where people are just reaching out and with a beautiful picture that says, "How are you today?" Same thing in e-com, keeping people cheery and keeping people bright. All of those are possibilities, but at the end of the day, really what it does is it makes your constituents feel like you are concerned about them during this time. I heard a great stat on a webinar recently, and it was, or not a stat, it was just a comment, and it was about the idea that you would what do you do with messaging during this time, which we're going to talk about in a little while. And the expert that was speaking on the call said, communication right now is really important to all of our donors and constituents. We can't do much wrong with the outreach, with the compassionate outreach that says, how are you? How can we help you? What is the best way you can support, how can you support us right now within your limitations, and having those clear and honest communications. So you can't do anything wrong necessarily there, or you can't do, I don't know the term, what you can, however, do is really turn people off by communication that isn't compassionate to that right now. So communication during this time is very important, just to make sure that your donor feels important, feels the love, know that you are caring about them, and that you're seeing what is going on, which obviously we all see. So I am actually going to pause for a second. This is where we've got our first little Ask the Expert section to have a Q&A, and I was curious, and Kim, do we have any?
So we do, and before we get to our first question, and please keep, type your chat questions in the question box or the chat box of the GoToMeeting console, any questions you have for Carly. But I did want to make a comment about this before we get to those questions from the board member perspective. So I've been on the board of Big Brothers Big Sisters of Central Oregon for over 10 years, and And we recently had, we have a board meeting scheduled for this week. And I was like, oh, should we just cancel it? Like, we've already had to cancel or postpone our Bowl for Kids' Sake, peer-to-peer event. And, is there any reason to have a board meeting? And so I went to the executive director and I was like, hey, I think we probably should have a board meeting, if nothing else, just to check in to see how the board members are doing. Does anybody need anything? And also, what does the agency need right now? And what we decided to do on our agenda was, still have the meeting, have it virtually during, do like a Zoom or whatever, GoToMeeting call, and ask everyone how they're doing. And then also, the agency has had to pivot a little bit, and instead of doing, all these one-to-one, support of the matches, they've actually been delivering food boxes out to the rural communities, to some of the people who they know their parents have lost their jobs, or that sort of thing. And also there's one county that doesn't have the technology provided to students to do any additional schooling, so they're asking for donations of technology equipment. And I was like, oh, well, that's perfect. Let's ask the board, first of all, check in, see how everybody's doing. And if they're, and if they're able, maybe they can switch, instead of, volunteering at Bowl for Kids' Sake or looking for, fundraisers and sponsors for that event. Instead, we're going to ask people to, donate food and computer equipment if they have it. So I just thought that was a really good, you just never know until you ask kind of moment. Anyway, so that was my comment.
You warm my heart. You warm my heart.
Yeah.
That's
so,
exactly
okay, but we,
yay.
Yeah. So anyway, so keep having those board meetings, I think. And also, I'm really curious about, how things are going and how people are doing and, all that stuff. So I'm assuming the other board members are. But anyway, okay, so I do have another one here about events. So it's my fall events require committee meetings, and I'm having a hard time getting people to attend. What should I do?
Oh, that is a great question, because obviously, as part of this whole strategy of reaching out and being that compassionate nonprofit staff member that you always are, you are going to still encounter a lot of the same activities that we saw prior to this crisis, which is nobody responds to your calls, your emails, maybe your texts. And that's a really real thing. I totally understand that. And I think as an organization, or as organizations, we do also need to be part of our being compassionate is being compassionate to the fact that our committee members, our board members, or whoever it is, obviously their life has transitioned just as much as mine or ours, and perhaps they can't, maybe they have their kids home, or maybe it's the time of the day where they are on mom or dad duty because the other spouse has taken care of them and they're done, or maybe there's a lot of stuff going on right now. So I think the best thing that you could do, especially given the abundance of time, is still host your meeting. Obviously, just like when we are able to be interactive with each other together, sometimes things come up and people can't attend your meeting, still host the meeting. But where I think you can go the extra mile right now in that is to reach out to that specific committee member and say, hey, Liz, I know you missed our meeting last night. We had a bunch of really great conversations around a few things that I think you'd be interested in. Can I call you? And I almost I'm willing to bet money, maybe $1 or $2, that your committee or board member will take that time for you to have that one-on-one conversation. So I would say stay the course on those committee meetings, but provide some outreach and provide an outlet for alternatives, understanding obviously everybody's lives have been severely affected. That's a good question though.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
And
that was our only question in this section. So shall we move on to the breaking barriers section?
We shall. Thank you, Kim. Great intro. So here is the next topic we're going to talk about: breaking down the barriers to giving. And I quick little side note why I picked this photo specifically. This is a very personal thing to me, but I picked this because when I was very young in my nonprofit career and I had no clue what I was doing, somebody gave me this quote and it sat on my desk. It actually still sits on my desk to this day. I'm looking around for it. The paper is 25 years old, but this quote really, to me, summarizes exactly what it feels like to be a fundraiser, especially during a time of crisis. And I say that with a little bit of a laugh because I know exactly where you all are now, in that a lot of times we get to plan and push things ahead and really test things out and make sure that we not just meet a barrier, but that we're able to hurdle it really well. But we don't always have the time to do such a diligent pre-launch or diligent launch. Sometimes we just got to go with it and see what happens. So on that note, Kim, why don't you lead our poll this time around?
Okay, great. So our next poll question, okay, get ready to answer here, is what are your barriers to giving currently? So what are you experiencing right now that your organization is struggling with, or that you are experiencing challenges in how to talk to or how to continue that trend of giving? So we'll give people a few more minutes to vote here.
I'll also say too, once again, as with the last poll, if you don't see your barrier, please put it in chat. Kim will throw it out there for the whole group to see. She'll say it.
Yes. I have the questions and the chat screen open, ready to read your answers. Okay, I think we've had most people vote. Oh, we have a couple more coming in. I'll give you people another second here. Yeah, so if you're checking other barriers not listed, it'd be great if you put those specifics in the question area, which, okay, great. People are doing that. Fantastic. Okay, so I'll go ahead and close this poll and share the results. Okay, so we've got 39%. Not sure what to say. I've heard that one a lot, actually. We don't know how to transition to a virtual event. We are helping some people with that for sure. Internal structure can be challenging. Your population, your market area. This is why we decided not to convert our Bowl for Kids' Sake to virtual. We just didn't feel like we had the demographic that might be fully successful this year. Here are some of the other barriers that were listed. So we sent a physical appeal letter out last week. Okay, so good. So we're going back to snail mail. That is actually probably a great way to mix it up right now. Differing opinions internally about the right way to move forward or not move forward with asking at this time. Yes, okay, that's challenging.
Great one.
So we have another one. They say, I know what to say. We know how to transition to virtual events, and we don't have internal politics. We also don't really, oh wait, I have to open this up more to see the rest of the question. Uh-oh, technical difficulties, please stand by. There we go. Okay, oh, maybe that's, we might have missed, Lindsay, I might be missing the rest of your sentence here that starts with, we also don't really. So if you wanna put more in the chat, I might have more to go on there. Another one here, our constituents and volunteers are timid to make asks right now. Oh, and they hand addressed, the comment about sending physical appeal letters is that they are hand addressing the envelopes. So that's a barrier because I'm sure that's very time consuming. And then another one here, as a university, we are working hard to emphasize supporting research and student support, but as we don't directly support people in need at this time.
Mm-hmm. Great topic. Yeah, timid. All right, I'm writing all these down so we can hopefully touch on them in this group or the next group that we dive into. Okay, don't support currently. Yeah. Okay, awesome. Kim, thank you. Let's dive in. But I loved that interaction. I loved that participation. Thank you. And first of all, whoever did the snail mail addresses, I would like to give you kudos, or snail mail with the handwritten addresses. I would like to give you kudos. The one thing that I didn't say when I was a very, very new to fundraising was that we did a lot of snail mail. And we hand wrote all of the addresses, and it makes a really, really nice little bit of makes the donor think, wow, they took this time to do it. So kudos to that, but it does take a long time, and I agree with that. Hey, Kim, are you able to turn?
Yes, I will do that right now. And also, that was Amy that put that comment in there, and she said we actually chose to handwrite the addresses to make it more personal. So it was not actually a barrier, but more of a choice, which I think is also interesting. So thanks, Amy. Thanks for sharing that.
Amy, you rock, Amy, today. All right. So obviously, as you have heard, there are a lot of current barriers to giving to your organization. Ones that you see on the screen right now are the ones that I do think are really high up in the annals of, like, top level barriers at this moment. But I will say that messaging, not knowing what to say, or not currently supporting a relief effort are also very, very large barriers. So let's talk a little bit about these. I'm super excited to hear you all say that virtual events don't necessarily scare you as much as maybe the original thought from the community was, because if you are an organization that is working technology forward, you've probably already experienced, especially in the social media world, the need for Instagram stories, Facebook stories, live streaming, and all those good things. But perhaps maybe you haven't been able to actually execute them yet. So I think that for organizations that think virtual events is, oh, well, we haven't tried it yet, but why not? Or my particular motto is #can't hurt. Let's try it. Not always a good model for every event, but in a lot of cases in virtual events is a place where I always say #can't hurt. As long as you can do it, that you can do it with relative ease. But it is a real barrier if you have a donor base that is not traditionally used to a virtual activity. When I worked for Heifer International, our donor base actually was very, very heavy in still sending in checks, and conversely calling in donations. The way that they have fundraised for 75 years lends itself to that really, really well. And their donors don't easily switch from a high touch environment to a virtual environment. And that is a really, really large concern. So I do think that in this world of where we are right now, if your demographic isn't going to respond virtually, then it is not it's not a road that you have to go down. And that's okay. But I do think that, those of you who have some interest in virtual events, or kind of adding a virtual fundraising component to your fundraising event or your fundraising initiative right now, it is a great way to do that. I think platform expertise as a barrier to giving is also very important with virtual events, because what I see a lot of the times in the community, nonprofit community, is that we know that you all pay some very good hard-earned donor money for platforms that support your giving to the best of its ability. And I think a lot of times what we see is that organizations have these amazing platforms that are very, very highly skilled, but because of whatever reason, they don't know how to use each and every skill. So that's what we do here at Zuri Group, is we really will sit down with a client and we'll say, what are your platforms? What are you using? Where is your donor data managed? And then how can we sit down on a strategy and really make that work for you using the tools you already have and you've already paid for? But I really understand that sometimes platform expertise can also be a huge barrier to giving if you are not fully aware or have not ever tried those capabilities before. And I'll give you a good, for example, as we sort of move into social media marketing, is that prior to the coronavirus, I'm about to get really honest with y'all on this call. I had never done an Instagram story, and I am a marketing fundraising professional who touts Instagram stories all the time. But personally myself, I never really knew how to use them. I am now an Instagram story whiz, so I will say that I have learned it really quickly. But I would put that, for me, if I was looking at a barrier to my own giving, knowing and understanding social media marketing was a really large barrier. In this, the way that I chose to jump over that barrier was to learn it myself. And there's a huge learning curve there, I think. I thought there was, at least. I'm getting better at it. But I also think that there's a lot of value that comes in doing this. We're in a time where everybody is, obviously we have all these emotions going on, but one of them is people are very understanding right now. People, your constituents, they know that we are all in a pickle together and we just don't quite know how to walk through this. And so whereas I think prior to the coronavirus, if you didn't know social media marketing, it probably wasn't the greatest place to go. Whereas now I think that we have this opportunity where we're all trying and we're learning new things and we're transitioning into a new way of lifestyle. So if you mess up a little bit on the social media marketing the first few times, I think it's going to be okay. That's how I would drop that barrier to giving, and know that with practice makes perfect, and social media marketing is no exception. And I've seen it definitely fun. Once you get up to speed on social media marketing, the live streaming potential in there is large. And I know some of you said that you have a donor base that doesn't give virtually or doesn't know virtual events. And I get that for sure. But I also would encourage you, however, to really at least look to Facebook. Facebook is the generation, is where a certain generation of givers are. It's where your largest generation of givers are. And it is the place where a lot of money is being raised. So if you're trying to decide based on time limitations or decide based on capacity limitations, which ones do I learn? Where do I go? My best guess is Facebook first, Instagram second. Although the tools that are available on either one vary a little bit, and there is a lot of great things that you can do on Instagram. So get on in there and learn it. And then I heard on a webinar the other day, the greatest idea ever, which, I was taught somebody who is probably, around in my capability level on social media marketing said, I have no clue how to do that, but hey, my kids are home and they're on social media all the time. So I hand them the phone and I ask them to do something for me. And the next thing I know, I have a brilliant something or other to send from my organization. So if you have that flexibility to, take on an intern during this time of everybody's at home, have those younger generations come in and really teach you how to use that social media marketing. And if you got someone who wants to scream from the balcony, my balcony on TikTok, I will let them, because TikTok is the next place I'm checking out. And then I want to talk to you a second about Facebook fundraising. Prior to the crisis, obviously Facebook fundraising was a very, very a hot place to be for fundraising. And with $3 billion raised online, 2 million users a day logged into Facebook at least, it is where people are going. I will say, because I'm checking time and we have one more section to cover, I don't want to dive too far deeply into Facebook fundraising, but other than to say your organization may or may not be using it right now. This is where, I know I work for organizations where internal politics made it really difficult for us to utilize Facebook fundraising because of the lack of donor data and the inability to respond. But if you are seeing people want to give, if you are seeing that people want to support you, and I can say with 100% certainty that they know how to use Facebook fundraising. And as an organization, if you are not using Facebook fundraising right now, you are missing, you have up a huge barrier towards giving to your organization. So Zuri Group has a great way that we work with organizations to steward donors within the Facebook fundraising platform, because we know that it's challenging. But if you are interested in hearing more about that, wanting to dive into that, please reach out to us. Please reach out to us after. I heard everything. I have one more thing, and we're going to put it to the last section, which is, what if you don't support COVID, what if you don't support a relief effort for COVID right now? So I heard you on that. We'll talk about it during the next section. I want to quickly run through and show you an example to breaking down a barrier that I really found to be very exciting. When life hands you lemons, this is the virtual climb for World Wildlife Fund Canada, and obviously you see their dates. They were meant to be April 4th and April 5th. So this was an event that would have been canceled otherwise. And if you are if you're unsure of what a tower climb is, essentially you start at the bottom of a really tall building and climb all the way to the top. We do one here in Austin, and it's a fun, exciting challenge. It's not, it's not as much as a marathon, but it is a very labor intensive. And really quickly after we started the COVID, our COVID social distancing, the World Wildlife Fund decided to change it into a virtual tower climb. And I thought this was a really great idea. They actually hosted live streaming training sessions. They gave people the opportunity to be involved, and then they actually asked their participants to climb their own set of stairs on the day of. So I thought this was a great idea. When life hands you lemons, you just make a little bit of lemonade. And then why I have this one up is the Dallas Marathon. I really love what they did. The Dallas Marathon's event is in December, so there's not really an immediate cancellation. Why I love what they did was they definitely put together a virtual activity so that their runners could feel excited about something. What I love about this, however, is that you'll see two things. First, how it works. They provided 3 simple, clear steps. This is what you do. Take a picture, post it on social media, tag us, and there you go. And then they threw in competitions, Spirit Week. So here's what we're going to be looking forward to those weeks. So Kim, I do see our time, and I want to make sure that we get in that last slide. So I was hoping that I could can we hang on to the Q&As? We'll flip into our last section and then end it with the one last big push. Does that sound good?
Sounds great.
Perfect. So the gift of time, and I will say this is our last section, and I also want to say I've heard from a lot of you, or I've said this many times in my nonprofit career, yeah, well, if I only had all the time in the world. And if you're laughing right now, you kind of know what that means. As nonprofit professionals, we feel like we just do not have the time to take care of everything that we need. And I don't necessarily want you to assume that right now I'm saying that you do have all the time in the world where you didn't before, because our lives have been completely upended. But you might be finding yourself with more time than normal to think about the future. You might be sitting there wondering about it by yourself, or you might be sitting on call after call after call about what is the future. So let's go ahead and just throw that quick poll up, Kim. Get a quick use. This is our last poll of the day.
Okay.
And then we will dive in to how to use the gift of time. So in the past month, if you have reached out to your constituents to make sure they're okay, click yes. And if you've tried a new strategy within the last month, click yes, click it. I'm curious about this too. While we're waiting, and just for the essence of time, Kim, while you're waiting for people to finish the poll, I do want to quickly expand on that person who said that you are not a mission that supports relief efforts right now, and I feel you on this one. There's a lot of organizations out there right now who don't necessarily have the ability to say we are creating a relief effort specifically for the coronavirus. And I know that does put you in a very, very hard situation with regards to raising funds. I do, however, want to commend you as an organization if you are not reaching out because you're not supporting and you want the funds that people do have to give right now to go towards relief efforts. I don't have a great, sort of answer for that, but I will say that if you are being a good steward, if right now you don't necessarily have something that is immediately needing to be funded, that you maybe look a little bit further down the road. Hopefully your organization financially can do that. But if you can do that and you aren't in immediate need right now, there are a lot of people with an immediate need. So let's let them. Woohoo, everybody. Oh my goodness. I know I'm curious for Kim for those of you who have tried a new strategy within the last month, I'm curious as to hear what they are. And if you want to just chat that in, Kim can kind of keep that. And kudos to everyone for reaching out to your constituents. I love it. So Kim, can we get that? There we go. Here we go, using the gift of time. We are finding ourselves in situations where we have a little bit more time for reflection. Obviously, that reflection needs to be sprinkled across the board, but when your reflection centers on work, I wanted to provide you all with a few things that I would put in that category of, if I had all the time in the world to do something, this is what I would do. Databases are really, really large, obviously, and big undertakings. And if you are of the situation where maybe your database isn't as clean as it should be, maybe the notes are lacking on your major donors, now is a really, really great time to get in there and update your data. If you had an unsubscribe list that needed to be moved, or if you have data sets that need to be investigated, now is a really great time to clean out that data and to get it ready to go, so that when you are ready for your next level, or when you're ready to move forward, that you do it with a clean database. This is also a great time if you are one of those organizations, which I hope everybody is, where you keep prospect notes, donor notes, and have a data management system for how to track your donors. You don't have that right now. Now's a great time to put that out. And what this will do, it seems like it's, when I worked in nonprofits, I would always assume that database management and cleanup was kind of like busy work if I'd nothing else ever going on. And but it is definitely a great project to kind of undertake and tackle if you have the time. Strategy adjustments right now are probably necessary. As we were just talking about, maybe you're an organization who doesn't have a donation need for a relief effort right now. So obviously that means you are going to have to look for the next strategy. How long can we maybe go without getting the same, what is our new donation goal, or, what is the new normal that's going to get us where we need to be while people are supporting relief efforts of the variety of everybody who is dealing with COVID and the coronavirus. One of the biggest takeaways in here that I highly recommend that everybody do is an autoresponder review. I was on a webinar this week and they talked about autoresponders and COVID compassionateness, I guess, if you will. So a lot of us have autoresponders that just are on autopilot because that's how they're set up to be. Remembering, however, though, that messaging to your donors and your constituents is really important right now. So you want to make some time to review those autoresponders, because if they are in a situation where maybe they are not proper for right now's communication, turn them off. You don't have to change them. You don't have to do new work. Just turn them off for right now, make a note of it, and turn them on when we're out of the coronavirus crisis. And so I think that that's a really great way that you can help with your strategy adjustments. And then really look out for learning opportunities. I want to give you all huge kudos for coming today, because you're staying educated, you are listening to what people are saying, and you're bringing that knowledge back to your staff and to your constituents, and it is going to really pay off. So keep those learning opportunities going. This is a great time to get involved with your local community, as you already are, but to keep on top of what's going on with your mission in the local community, because maybe you are one of those charities that doesn't see a direct connection to funding right now, but within your community, something is happening that you don't know about that you probably could be very helpful with. So stay up to date on that. And then learning opportunities, just like I was saying with social media, I've made it my homework to become good with Instagram stories. I highly recommend you do something like that as well. So we have 3 minutes left, and I want to leave all 3 minutes for those questions. And okay. So let's do that.
Okay, and before we get to questions, I wanted to also circle back on the people who put comments in our chat about trying a new strategy. So Mike made the comment that we held a webinar with alumna who is a corporate motivational speaker. So I thought that was an interesting one to note. And then Sonia put in that our Alumni Association has launched a hashtag virtual on social media to keep our global family connected. We are also working hard on data cleanup and tackling our unengaged recipients and lost constituents. So there you go. Somebody's already working on data.
Love hearing that. Great job. Great job to you guys, and thanks for sharing.
Yes. Okay, and then I think it doesn't look like we have any more questions, and we're kind of out of time here anyway. So we would just like to thank you for attending the session. And if you would like more information or would like to chat with us about strategies or, you know, the technology surrounding changing things to virtual, we have some pre-written articles that we can send you if you're interested, or if you want to schedule a strategy consulting session with Carly. All of those things are available to you, so please reach out to us if you're interested. And otherwise, we hope you stay safe and healthy and sane in these crazy times. And thank you again for your time. And thank you, Carly, for all of your wonderful knowledge.
Thanks, everyone. Good luck using this time to the best of your ability, not only for your own personal health, safety, and care, but also for the organizations and for the community of people that you serve. We are the people that lead the charge into the next level of what's yet to come. And I welcome the opportunity to chat with any of you at any time. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, or just need a little pep talk, I am here. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you. Thanks.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.